The first Animal Crossing game was both a commercial and critical success. So naturally, just a few years after its release, Nintendo announced they would be developing a sequel. That sequel would turn out to be Animal Crossing Wild World for the Nintendo DS. Unlike the first game, I actually have a decent amount of experience with this one. I picked up a copy from a used game store several years ago, after I finally felt like I'd run out of things to do in New Leaf, and I remember really enjoying this one, so I'm excited to hop back into it and see how it expands on the framework that the first game set in place. Right off the bat, things are pretty different. Instead of entering your town via a train and being bombarded with questions from Rover, well, now you enter town in a taxi and answer questions from Kapp'n. But it's still the same basic concept as last time. Kapp'n asks you personal questions, and the game uses this to determine your name, gender, town name, etc. I ended up naming my town Cockland. Yeah, quick word of advice, don't ask my friends to help you name something. Anyways, after Kapp'n's done asking you questions, he drops you off in front of the new town hall, then drives off, never to be seen or heard from again. Presumably because he died in a car crash off-screen. I assume this because the direction he drives off in leads directly into a wall. This opening bit also reminds me that roads and cars exist in the Animal Crossing universe, yet Kapp'n has dropped us off in a town that has neither. I am in the middle of nowhere. This must be why it's called Wild World, because I am trapped in the woods, dear God help. This must be what that one episode of The Office is based on.
Dwight will be driving me deep into the Pennsylvania wilderness, where he will then leave me to either die or to survive.
Under this tree, I think I struck the mother lode. Those are nature's best mushrooms. No! Give him up!
Jokes aside though, I think this really does help drive home the idea that this is a small, isolated town far away from the rest of society, which I assume is what the game was going for. The rest of the opening moments of the game are pretty much a carbon copy of the original game's beginning, just with minor alterations. You still have to work for Nook, and the tasks he makes you do are the exact same as before, like to a T, exact same. But now you don't choose a house, instead there's just one house waiting for you. That's another big noticeable change. This game has 4 save files just like before, but they all live in one house. I assume this was done since it's a handheld game and those are usually owned by one person, not shared amongst several. But because of this, the house by default has an upstairs. In there is a phone you can change the settings at, and a bed that you can save at. I think this is kinda neat. I've always been a fan of using beds as save spots. It's a trope in games I quite enjoy. It still doesn't make this feature any less bizarre. Before anything else, I should probably talk about the controls. It's pretty similar to the first game. You got a run button, action button, a button that opens your inventory, and one that opens your map. Now, since this game is on the DS, movement was designed with a D-pad in mind, which means even if you play it on something with an analog stick, you're still going to be going in 8 directions and nothing more. It's not like a huge deal or anything. This is basically how it worked on the GameCube too, but somehow it feels more jank here. Like I had so much more trouble lining up my fishing rod and net in this game than before on the GameCube. But you know, I'm willing to give the game the benefit of the doubt because obviously it's like this due to hardware limitations. I completely understand that. Speaking of hardware, this game also has touchscreen compatibility. For most of this footage, I've been showing you only one screen at a time, but this is what the game actually looks like when you're playing it. All the actual gameplay is on the bottom screen. The main reason they did this is because this game can be controlled entirely with said touchscreen, and this actually works better than I expected it to. You move by holding down the stylus in a direction, you interact with things by tapping on yourself while standing near them, and it makes navigating menus a lot smoother than before. But it does take some getting used to. For some things it's a bit annoying regardless of whether you're used to it or not, such as catching bugs and fish, since using the touchscreen to catch bugs would require you to stop moving entirely to use the net, which doesn't work out all that well when bugs are always on the move. But lining yourself up to fish is much easier when you're moving this way, since you're not restricted to a set number of directions. I still prefer button controls. I'd rather sacrifice good positioning for being able to use face buttons for things instead of hoping I tapped the right spot at the right time. Another thing you might have noticed is that the camera angle has changed. There's no more grids and top-down angles like there was in the last game. Instead, the camera is lower, and it stays attached to you all the way, with the background rolling into frame like you're perpetually climbing a hill. I'm grateful for this change, it looks a lot better, and it helps a lot with getting the player accustomed to the town's layout. I guess it also helps that the town is a bit smaller and simpler now. Places are much closer together, and there's no cliffs, the whole town is at the same elevation. Not only is the town a bit smaller, but really everything has been made more compact, presumably due to the less powerful hardware. A lot of the main locations in town from the last game have been scrapped, or had their purposes extracted and combined into other places. The Wishing Well, Post Office, and Dump have been combined into one place, that being the Town Hall. You can send and receive mail there, talk to Tortimer there on holidays, and there's a bin off to the side that you can put trash and unwanted items in. It's way more efficient to have it designed this way, I get that, but I do honestly kind of prefer having the 3 functions split between 3 different places, just because I like having more unique locations. In terms of other places to go, there's of course Nook's shop and the Able Sisters. They're now a package deal. No matter what your town layout is, they'll always spawn side by side. Nook's store works pretty much the same as it did before. It's the general store, it's where you sell stuff, it upgrades as you use it more, yada yada yada. They did, however, fix one of the biggest problems I had with the first game. You can now sell more than one item at once. It's extremely useful, really a no-brainer of an addition. In terms of shop upgrades, they're pretty much the same as before, but now the base shop has a bit more inventory in it. Unfortunately, because not much has changed, this also means you can't get the final upgrade without having a friend come to your town and buy something, which is nearly impossible these days due to the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection being down for years at this point. It's still possible, you just have to invite friends to your town via local play, and thank God I was able to have that happen once on my main copy of the game. Yeah, notice I said main copy. I'm actually not playing this on the DS, I'm playing the Wii U port that exists for some reason, God knows why. It's not the ideal way to play this game, but I mean it works I guess. And fortunately, in this version they took out the need for a friend to visit. Unfortunately, getting the final shop upgrade still takes a lot of time and effort that I don't have, so I wasn't able to do it in time for the video, but it is there, I assure you. The Able Sisters is way more useful now. It actually sells clothing, not just custom designs, and the clothing system has been completely revamped. You now don't have a hat by default, you have to buy one on your own. And you don't have to wear matching patterns anymore. You can look less like a loser. I mean, I still look like a loser, but at least it's of my own accord. Able Sisters is also home to Sable, who I forgot to mention in the last video. If you talk to her, she'll at first be really dismissive of you, but if you do it every day, she'll warm up to you and say more than just a few sentences at a time. There's not really any reward for befriending her other than hearing about her oddly depressing backstory. But I love the fact that there's a shopkeeper NPC that you can actually befriend over time. That's a really cool concept for a game like this. You can also change your hairstyle now, if you get the final shop upgrade first, which I didn't because I ran out of time. So I'm stuck with this me-looking haircut. You also can't change your skin tone manually. You have to spend time tanning in the sunlight, which can take an absurd amount of time, and it's just really goddamn stupid as a concept. This was in the first game too, but I forgot to mention it in that video. Also returning from the last game is the museum. The museum got quite an upgrade. The main museum stuff is relatively the same though. You can still donate bugs, fish, fossils, and artwork, and unlike the shop, you still have to donate everything individually with text in between each donation. But at the very least, Blathers finally got his fossil identification license, so you can just have them identified right then and there instead of sending them to some other museum out of town. But he has to identify them one at a time too, just like everything else. So, one step forward, one step backward, I guess. That's how I describe the museum. But hey, the museum has some new additions. There's a second floor now, and up there is Blathers' sister, Celeste. You may have noticed that when you're outside, the whole top screen is taken up by the sky. Well, if you talk to Celeste, you can create your own constellations, and they'll actually show up in-game. I made the letter S. The S stands for savings. I remember years ago I somehow managed to spell the word fuck with this feature. Still one of my proudest gaming moments. Right up there with cheesing the Darth Vader boss in Fortnite and getting to touch Dr. Isaac Kleiner from Half-Life 2. Also in the museum now is the Roost. The Roost is a coffee shop. That's it. Like, there's no gameplay purpose, you just buy coffee. It does absolutely nothing. You drink it, and that's it. But I love this place. It's got such a nice vibe. I love buying the coffee here every day, even though I know it literally does nothing. It's just a neat feature. Also, KK Slider performs here now instead of the train station. He's even got his own stage. I like how over the course of the series you can see KK slowly developing an audience. Like, he starts as a street musician, now he's getting gigs in the local coffee shop, and later he's considered to be like a huge celebrity. It's just cool that characters in these games aren't always static. They evolve over time. The last major place in town is the town gates. The train station is gone completely. In its place is this giant gate guarded by Booker and Copper from the old police station. I can't tell if this is considered a promotion or a demotion from their previous careers. And yeah, this does mean the police station is also missing, as are a lot of features from the first game, honestly. There's also no longer a tropical island, no more NES games or raffles. They even took out Toy Day and Halloween. They did this so the game could be released in all regions with few changes. So instead of holidays like Christmas and Halloween, we instead get made-up holidays like the Acorn Festival, where your town is suddenly covered in acorns and you have to gather them and bring them to Tortimer in exchange for mushrooms. Thanks? Another event in this game is the flea market, which involves your neighbors trying to sell you their junk. Which is all well and good, but if you even step foot in your own home, there's a chance that some schmuck from town is gonna waltz in and try to buy your stuff. And they always try to give you total low-baller offers. You can cancel out of this easily though, so it's not like a huge deal, you just gotta leave the room. There's also still occasional visitors to the town, including several new ones. Like Lyle, who's the worst character in the game, and I love him. He's a sleazy con man who tries to sell you accident insurance in case you get hurt. But no matter how much I tried not to, he wouldn't shut up until I paid 3,000 bells for his bullshit insurance. And the only reason I eventually did buy it was because I accidentally pressed the wrong button. Once you have the insurance, he sends you 100 bells every time you get stung by a bee or trip and fall. It's just enough of an inconvenience that it's funny instead of being annoying. Speaking of comedy, there's also Dr. Shrunk, the therapist/comedian hybrid who teaches you how to have emotions, because all villagers are born as lifeless husks. These are basically just like emotes. They're meant to be used in the multiplayer mode that barely exists anymore. There's a couple other visitors you can meet, like Red, returning from the last game, but I didn't see all of them because they're completely random. As a self-proclaimed game reviewer, RNG mechanics are my mortal enemy. Back onto the topic of internet functionality though, this game actually has even more features you can't access easily anymore, such as the note in a bottle feature. Sometimes you'll find these bottles with letters in them washed up on your beach, such as this one I got from the devs, telling me to play the game at least 1 hour per day. I don't think they have medical licenses. You can also write your own and have them wash up on your friends' towns. You can buy bottles from Nook that let you write messages in them, then you just toss them out into the ocean. Then you and your friend both go into tag mode, which is where the game looks for things to receive from other hardware in the nearby vicinity. This was used to get messages in bottles, but also at certain real-life locations and events, you could use it to get exclusive items, like this Mario furniture set that I'm pissed off I can never officially obtain anymore. I was hoping this too was added into the Wii U version somehow, but I don't think that it is. This feature is sort of a replacement for the trading stuff in the first game. In Animal Crossing on the GameCube, if you wanted to give someone an item, you would have to get Nook to give you a password for the item, then have a friend repeat the password into their own copy of the game, and they'd get the item for free. But some passwords were given out by Nintendo as a means to give people exclusive items. I much prefer the password system. It meant that even in this day and age, people could still unlock these special items, so having things be locked behind being at a specific location in a specific time frame is just really stupid. Anyways, I'm gonna end this part of the video with a few other random additions to this game that I want to cover. For one, closet space has increased drastically. Instead of only 3 items fitting in one storage device, now all storage devices share the same inventory, which is now 96 slots. Alongside all the tools from the last game returning with no real changes, there's also a new tool, the watering can. Flowers in this game aren't self-reliant anymore, you have to water them with a watering can often. because if you don't, then they'll wither and die. They've also added the slingshot, which unfortunately is not able to be used as a weapon. Instead, it's used to knock things out of the sky, which makes sense for a game where most of the time half your screen is taken up by the sky. And finally, there's the addition of pitfall seeds. These are items you can bury in the ground, and if someone walks over where it's buried, the ground crumbles beneath them. You can get trapped by them yourself, but if you dig one up before walking over it, you can plant it somewhere else and commit acts of tomfoolery on your neighbors. The neighbors themselves have changed a little bit since the last game. They still talk the same pretty much, they're still full of personality, but now they also actually do things, like going after bugs and fish. You also can't outright ask them for things to do anymore. Instead, if a villager needs something, they'll approach you themselves. And now, on to the game's presentation. This game looks and sounds stellar. Like, spoiler alert, I guess, but god, this game's presentation is so damn good. The graphics are beautiful. They have that weird DS 3D thing going on, the way it looked when Nintendo was still trying to make 3D graphics look good on the DS. This is a graphical style I really like. It's really charming. It's like the DS is just trying its best to handle all 3 dimensions at once. The colors here are also really good. In the first game, a lot of the colors looked kind of washed out, and admittedly that might have been a problem with my GameCube or with my capture card or something. But here, everything looks vibrant, everything stands out well, and when the seasons change, it still looks great. Like, every season has a distinct color palette. Another thing that I like is that the characters' models are polygonal, but not, like, overly so. It's the perfect level of low quality to where, even if you notice the imperfections, they just add to the charm instead of ruining the experience, and that's something I really enjoy. These graphics are also accompanied by one of the best OSTs in video game history. The music fits so much better here. Everything just makes sense. Like the title theme. The title theme is more laid back than it was in the first game. Like, it's still welcoming, but it feels like you're being welcomed back to somewhere you know well, rather than a new place full of excitement and promise. They also fixed my problem with the museum theme. The new one feels much more like a museum. It has this vibe of intelligence, like you're in a place to learn something, but still is very comfortable. And it's still simple, so that it can get different instruments added to it depending on what exhibit you go into. The Roost's theme sounds exactly like what a coffee shop should sound like. It's a song played entirely on the piano. It sounds very dignified, which fits the classy nature of roosters. Those are just a few of my favorite examples, but obviously the main event here is going to be the hour themes. And this game has some of the best in the series. And they actually fit the vibe of the hours they represent this time. The early morning songs are simple, but upbeat, perfect for when you've just woken up. Then they get more energetic, but not super energetic, as the day progresses into the afternoon. During the later afternoon, they get a bit softer, but still have some juice left in them. And then at night, it's just purely relaxing music. Perfect end-of-the-day stuff. There's still a bit of a shift up and down in terms of tone over the course of the day, but way more of the hour tracks hit the nail on the head compared to in the first game. I think the more chill music and the lower quality graphics give this game a cozy vibe that nothing else really compares to. It's a feeling you can't get anywhere else. This is one of the most pleasant games I've ever played. It's such a good experience. I think it's better than the first game. I know it's missing a lot of the content from the first game, but I think the new additions pretty much make up for it. I'd still prefer to see more returning stuff in the game, but the amount of content overall I'd say makes up for it. And I mean, hey, the fact this isn't the GameCube game again, but with more content, helps give the two games their own identities. It means there's still merit to playing either game today, because you'll get a different experience out of either game, but an experience that at its core is still Animal Crossing. This game is about going with the flow, experiencing new things, befriending people, living life day to day, and just accepting whatever may come. And that's why I love this game so much. New Leaf is the Animal Crossing game I've played the most, so many hundreds of hours over the course of its 9 years of existence. Jesus Christ, 9 years? Out of all of them, Wild World is the only other Animal Crossing game I've dedicated a serious amount of time into. So basically what I'm trying to say is, this game is super good. Amazing, even. Great game. So good, in fact, that it even got a film adaptation. Bet some of you didn't know about this one. Or at least, I assume it's not common knowledge, since I never hear anybody talking about it. But yeah, for those who don't know, there's an official animated movie based on Animal Crossing Wild World. It's pretty short, it's only like 87 minutes, and it's nothing groundbreaking in terms of storytelling. I mean, hell, there's barely a story in it to tell. But I think it almost perfectly captures the vibe of the series with what it has. It was only released in Japan, but thanks to the fanbase, there's ways to watch it in English now. So, if you love the games as much as I do, I'd totally recommend checking this movie out. But anyways, that's about all I have to say regarding Wild World. I liked it, just as I expected to. Next up in the series is Animal Crossing City Folk for the Wii, which is the Animal Crossing equivalent of a Persona re-release. City Folk is Wild World's Persona 4 Golden. Does that make sense? But hey, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If you want to see that video, then you should totally like and subscribe. I love it when people do that. You should do it. Do it now. Do it right now. Go. Do it now. Go. Also, you may have noticed the significant upgrade to my appearance in the thumbnails. Huge thanks to Kanashib for making all of that. Go check her out, please. There's a link in the description. Do it with an equal amount of urgency to the subscribing thing. So, like, right now, go. Please, now, go. Do it, now, go. Anyways, I've got a Halloween special to go work on. I'm hoping if I mention it in this video, I'll feel obliged to actually work on it. So I'm off to go do that, hopefully. Peace.